All right, well, we will get started now. Hi, my name is Sanchita Bhattacharya. I am the science program lead for the ImmPort program. On behalf of the ImmPort team, I welcome you all, and I'll be moderating the session today. This is an exciting time when topics such as data sharing, data standards, and data management plans are becoming an integral part of conducting research. And with the new NIH policy on data sharing going live starting early next year, today the ImmPort team has put together two presentations on how ImmPort as a domain-specific repository for immunology and clinical trials data can support your data sharing needs and how to submit research data to ImmPort. While everyone is settling down or getting on to Zoom, we will take a quick poll from the audience. Let me share the screen. So we will be using the Slido tool. So as you can see, if you're new to Slido, there is a barcode on the upper left-hand corner. You can scan the barcode that will take you to the Slido website, or you can directly go open a new browser and type slido.com, and you can also enter the access code, which will get you to the questions, and I'm already seeing the response. So I'll still read out the question. Our first question is, do you have any experience sharing data previously through open resources? I see the numbers are going up, so I'll wait a few more seconds. All right, so it's getting stable. Thank you so much for your response. So the second question is, are you aware of best practices for fair data sharing? Oh, so I see a mixed audience here. Some people are, it's great to see these numbers that a lot of people know about fair data sharing and those who don't. This session will inform you about fair data sharing and best practices. Let's move on to the third questions. Last but not least, have you sought guidance from a university library or repository about data management sharing plan? All right, so yeah, this is quite expected that this policy is getting implemented early next year, and we all are kind of figure out in the same boat how to come up with this data management sharing plan and how the ImmPort or repositories can help the researchers. So with that, thank you so much for your participation. So let's move on. I'll stop sharing first. So a few housekeeping items before we begin. Each presentation is about 20 minutes, followed by a Q&A. And please feel free to post your questions under the Q&A window during and after the presentations. And we'll take a few questions live after each presentation, and then our team will try to reply via text. The webinar will be recorded for future access. So let's begin the presentations. The title of the webinar is Selecting ImmPort for Open Access Immunological Data Sharing, Data Management and Sharing Plan, and Data Submission Highlights. Our first speaker is Kate Hypes. She is going to be talking about the resources available for data management and sharing plan, and followed by Henry Schaefer is going to give you the overview of the ImmPort data submission and sharing. So with that, I turn it over to Kate.
Great, thank you, Sanchita. And here we go. I'm just going to share my slides here. And let's see, hopefully that should be coming through well for all.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so thank you, Sanchita. As you mentioned, my name is Kate Hypes. I'm a member of the ImmPort team. I'm excited to speak to everyone today about how, a little bit about ImmPort. We'll do just a very quick overview for those on the call who may not be familiar with ImmPort at this time. And then how ImmPort can potentially support your data management and sharing needs, as well as creation of your data management and sharing plan. I think we'll have a brief point for Q&A after that. And then Henry, I know, will be going into some additional detail about actually how data sharing works within the ImmPort system. So with that, let me go ahead and move forward here. All right, so ImmPort, what is ImmPort? So ImmPort is a NIAID-funded platform for sharing immunology-related scientific data with the research community. And we are really focused on fair data sharing and promoting data reuse within the community. As I did mention, funded by NIAID and specifically Department of Allergy, Immunology, and Transplantation. I'll say the wonderful thing about this is that ImmPort is essentially a free resource to the community. There's no cost for registering for ImmPort to view the shared data or to upload your data. ImmPort is also a recommended repository from Nature as well as PLOS ONE. I think for many years now, we've held the core trust seal of approval for trustworthy data repositories. We're also listed, cataloged within R3Data.org as well. So ImmPort has been around for actually more than 20 years at this point. And currently there are over 6 million experimental results within ImmPort, within the data. And this chart here kind of highlights the data types currently that comprise the ImmPort repository. And, we have a large amount of flow cytometry data, as well as ELISA, Luminex, many multimodal data types. And these data are across currently 148 diseases and conditions and counting. There are over 550 plus NIAID funded studies or NIH funded studies contributing this data as well as others. And ImmPort currently is associated with over 1,000 publications, and that may be through original sharing of data and listing ImmPort as and using ImmPort as a repository for sharing the underlying data associated with the study, or it could be related to a reuse of the ImmPort data. And so that kind of brings me to the next slide. Just wanted to quickly highlight this is an example that was published in Nature last year. That is an example of a reuse of data within the ImmPort repository. And so this was a early study on within the pandemic of the immune response for the mRNA vaccine, COVID vaccine, and they were able to use several ImmPort data sets that actually as a benchmark for immune response against other vaccines to help study the immune response for the COVID vaccine. So again, lots of different ways that when you share your data, it may, go on to further the scientific understanding and body of knowledge here. So I also just wanted to highlight the many current data providers that have shared data through ImmPort. And, we're excited to welcome, hopefully many more with the implementation of the policy here. We have a number of NIAID funded programs, NIH funded programs, as well as external organizations. We've got, Bill and Melinda Gates, some March of Dimes data and others. But we are just, really, really grateful for every data provider and the sharing that they do of their data, which really, like I said, contributes to our greater understanding of immunology. Okay, so moving on. Sanchita mentioned, we all know there is, or most of us probably know, there's a new policy coming in 2023 across the NIH for data management and sharing. And so there are a number of excellent resources that I've come to notice out there. The NIH is putting out some, great information on the policy. I've included the link to the policy itself, as well as some other resources, I found helpful that are out there. There are more as well. But if you haven't familiarized yourself with those, definitely encourage you to, go out and take a look and, familiarize yourself with the policy. So ImmPort is listed. When you look through these resources, you will find ImmPort listed as a NIH supported open domain specific data sharing repository. So, like I said, focused on immunology related data. And you'll find, links to the ImmPort resource, through some of these resources as well. So part of the new policy, for those who might have had a chance to take a look, is one component is the data management and sharing plan. And so, there's going to be more to come on this, but I wanted to spend just, a brief moment today, talking about, how can ImmPort help you with your data management and sharing plan needs. So currently ImmPort offers, there's a resource page. So if you go out to the portal, you'll see the purple icon there. There is a wealth of documentation, some tutorials and resources out there to help, just better understand ImmPort, to get a feel for, data submission and some other aspects. Those pages are, constantly being improved and revamped as well. I know there's some enhancements coming to the data submission area. As well as I'm excited to announce coming soon, there will be a dedicated page on ImmPort referencing, really just focused on data management and sharing plans. We're excited to hopefully provide some sample text and some examples. So should researchers choose ImmPort for if that's a good fit for your data sharing needs, then we hope to provide some text and things where You can have a kind of an example to look at and to reference as you're creating your own plans. And then, of course, in addition to that page coming, we can always contact the ImmPort team. We, have a very responsive team through the help desk email here, who, is happy to field, questions, help folks out. Anything you might want to drop a line to us for, we're eager to hear that. And then again, like I said, to stay kind of updated on, this new page coming along, and just kind of stay in tune with what's the latest thing at ImmPort. We do put out a quarterly newsletter, and these slides will be made available after the presentation here. So there's some embedded links and things where if you'd like to go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter, you can stay updated that way. I will take a quick moment and just note that we've included a link to make sure if you subscribe, add ImmPort to your address book, and there's a link that'll kind of do that more automatically for you. But that just helps. Different organizations have spam filtering and things set up in different ways, and so that will just make sure that the newsletter doesn't get caught in your spam for any reason, and that you get it delivered to your inbox. We are also on Twitter and LinkedIn, and when new resources and things become available, when we have information to communicate, we're pretty active on those platforms. So we encourage you to follow us there as well. So I think that is it for my presentation here. And Sanchita, I understand we have some time for Q&A, correct?
Yes. And
Okay,
I'm seeing there's one question that I can read out. So the question is, other than shared samples information, what is the additional information that is uploaded in ImmPort if you already have the data uploaded to Geo, for example?
Great question. Say, Henry, feel free to jump in on that one if you'd like.
So yeah, I can speak to that. So we can link directly to ImmPort that's within Geo. You will need to create a study, as well as subject records, depending on the data that's within Geo and within publications. Sometimes all of that information is readily available. Especially if the data within Geo is released to the public. If data in Geo is still behind the embargo, then it's not as easy for us to create studies and create those linkages, but we can do that as well.
So just to add to this question is that let's say that you have data uploaded to Geo and you have additional lab data or any clinical data, or you have not uploaded the detailed demographics data on Geo. ImmPort could be the repository with all the metadata available, and then we can reference to the Geo if your gene expression or RNA-seq data is on Geo, so we can provide a reference link. So as what Henry was mentioning before, we register a study, and then under that study, you can have lab data, clinical data, assessment, adverse events, if you're working with clinical trial, and mechanistic data. So and I am assuming that when you have the data in Geo, these are all the mechanistic data that were in, and you want to get it referenced if you have additional data that goes into ImmPort. So that's how it works. Hope I was able to answer that question.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, there's not any more questions at this time. I will go ahead and turn it over here to Henry, and I know you're going to get into a bit more of actually how to share data within ImmPort.
Okay, can you stop sharing?
Well, there you go.
While Henry is bringing up the slides, there's another question. Do you include data from MCM or DMED? Henry, can you take that question?
We do. We do have data, some data from DMID within ImmPort. I'm trying to remember exactly which studies. But yes, we do have some data from DMID. I can just start. Hopefully, you know, getting to that question kind of right from the beginning, because I was wanted as I put together some slides based to talk about import data sharing, not the data sharing that we do through NIAID funded groups. So I wanted to start off with just kind of just go to the source and get some kind of pithy intro text to talk about, you know, what ImmPort does, kind of our mission. And so we host data from both NIAID funded and non-NIAID funded groups. And so the purpose of this discussion today was talk about how non-NIAID funded researchers get their data into ImmPort. Certainly our NIAID funded data submitters really drive the ImmPort development and kind of feature requests and user stories. But now we've opened up more and more to non-NIAID funded researchers. And so we also have a task to make the data more usable and to kind of focus on that and to try to do more with the shared data to assist our download data users. So I wanted to just put together a slide of the steps that you to go to for non-NIAID funded data submitters to get data shared through ImmPort. And the first step is really to go and look at ImmPort and see if ImmPort is appropriate for you. We do require an ImmPort account to both download the shared data. As Kate mentioned, it's a free account to download the shared data and to link your account to a private workspace. But we try to make as much available out in front of the login in terms of the documentation of our data submission templates, as well as metadata about the shared studies. So you can look at shared studies and see is ImmPort appropriate for you. So then you can get an ImmPort account, and then you can email the help desk to ask us for a private workspace. I'll detail some of the questions we're going to ask in that. And then you can create a study using either the study registration wizard or the upload templates. And then you can complete the uploading of your study data to your study. And then you can ask the ImmPort team to share your study in our next data release. So really here in this list, steps 4 and 5 can happen at the same time. You can upload everything all at once. I kind of broke it out into 2 separate steps here because that's usually for most people, most submitters, that's more convenient. It's easier to do that. And then also in that step number 4, you're generating ImmPort subject ImmPort study accession, and that study accession can then in turn be used to reference in publications. So a lot of times submitters want to create the study and generate that study accession, and then later get together their data, such as the subject demographics and the study data, and submit that later. Okay. So if you're interested in ImmPort, you'll find yourself here at the main ImmPort page, where you can look around at the various tools and resources within ImmPort. And if you want to head right to the documentation of data upload, you can select on the upload templates link, and that'll bring you to our documentation page. This has the documentation of the metadata required, as well as the data required and the rules required for populating the templates and uploading your data into ImmPort. So this page will tell you that if you want to upload data to a private workspace, you need to contact the help desk. Um, and the reasons that we have you contact the help desk is we're going to ask you some questions, and we find that it's best to get these talk to our data submitters as quickly as possible about these questions to manage expectations and to communicate with them about the process. So really, we have we start off with technical questions because data sets are getting bigger and bigger, and so now very frequently the first thing we ask is what kind of data are you uploading and how much, to make sure that if there's technical requirements with size, that we kind of confront that first. Then we ask a couple of questions really concerning if your data should actually be submitted to an existing ImmPort workspace. Some folks, they're working with collaborators and they don't really realize that they already, that they should be submitting their data to an existing workspace or an existing study, or if they, they share subjects with other studies that their collaborators have submitted, we want to add them to that same workspace and not create a new workspace for them. Okay, and then we'll want to know about the schedule. So kind of when do you need to generate a study accession? So as mentioned, that is used in publications for citation, so that we can do that right away when you're getting started. And then when do you want to share your data? So that's important. We talked to you about that. Currently, ImmPort contractually obligated to share data 4 times a year, every 3 months. In reality, it's become more frequent, and I think over the last year, we've really had data releases every 2 months. And we really drive, the studies that we have to release really drive our data release schedule. The data release schedule, our data release processes are kind of like a publishing process where we have a number of packaging and QC checks. And so the whole process for the data release really takes about a week to do. Really, when I was putting together these slides, I was really thinking about, just really putting together the process as it is now, and really wondering, things are moving so fast. We're really have plans to a lot of these manual processes that we have in place now. We'd be very interested in changing them. We don't have anything scheduled, but certainly all these workflows that I'm talking about now may be obsolete in the future, as we invite more non-NIAID funded researchers to share their data through ImmPort and try to streamline that process. Okay, so when you register for an ImmPort account, it's going to tell you right there on the registration page that we won't share your data without your explicit permission. So we don't have like a process like Geo does, where you have an embargo date, and then where if your publication comes out and you haven't given permission to share your Geo data, they will kind of push it out once your publication is public. We don't have any sort of process like that. So you need to email the ImmPort team and say, please release my study at the next data release. And right when you register for an account, we make that clear. When you register for an account, you're gonna get an email, just an email back from ImmPort asking you to confirm your account. And then every time you log in using your ImmPort account, you're going to have to agree to the user agreement. The user agreement is really kind of geared toward the data downloaders, the people who are using ImmPort shared data, and the legal language asking you not to break the law with ImmPort shared data. But all users, uploaders and downloaders, need an ImmPort account, and you need to click the button to agree to the user agreement. Okay. our current login process, we currently have the screen on the left. You can set up an import account. You can link your import account to Google. Within, it may be within, we're planning hopefully within the next month to begin rolling out multi-factor authentication. So this is now going to be required. This is mandated by NIH, and this is going to be required by all data submitters to use some multi-factor authentication platform to log into ImmPort when you want to submit data. This is mandated, so all NIH data repositories are going to have to grapple with this sooner or later. We don't yet have the completed documentation for what this is going to look like. We're working on that, and we're going to put that together as soon as it's ready, so we can let people know exactly what hoops you're going to have to jump through to log into ImmPort and upload data beginning in 2023. And I just want to warn people that this is coming. Even though this is just a screenshot from our dev environment, and we don't have the process finalized. Okay. In order to upload data into ImmPort, the first step is to create after you get your workspace, you create a study, and a study requires the data elements that you see here in the orange and the red. And then what you see in the rest of our data model diagram is the other data elements that we collect in ImmPort. You can see we have a number of data specific templates for upload based on popular immunology assays. We have specific templates for many different types of assays, and then we also have assessment templates, lab tests templates, and as a way to really capture the data in the most thorough way, and to make it the most reusable for our downstream users, as well as keeping it organized for our data uploaders. So the metadata that you're going to need to create the study, there are two documentation pages here that describe the metadata that's required that you'll need to get started. There's basic study design template, and then the protocols template that you'll need to get started. We also here you can see the page where you download the templates, and here I've got a screenshot of the Excel templates for the basic study design and protocols that you'll need to complete and save as text file and upload. Fortunately, we have a new study registration wizard. So the study registration wizard is a graphical user interface that you can use to create a study within ImmPort. It captures those same data elements as the templates, but it's more convenient to use in a graphical format. And you can kind of work together with your collaborators to then kind of complete the wizard and upload and create the study. Okay. Completed templates that are then saved as text files, they can be uploaded to your private workspace. You select your workspace here, and you select your files, and you upload them here in the screenshot on the left. That's our data uploader, and it looks very similar to the screenshot on the right, which is our data validator. So the data validator, what the data validator does is it'll test your templates to tell you what problems they might have, and help you troubleshoot, work through any upload issues you have. And the validator will generate those same error reports that the uploader generates, but you can do it much faster and without committing your data to the database until you're all ready to upload it. Okay. For large uploads, so for files that are larger than about half a gig, we have an Aspera upload server. So this works similar to the regular upload, but you need to install Aspera Connect on your browser. It's a plugin. I mentioned this because some people who either government people or academics who don't have administrative control over their own machines sometimes need to get IT folks to help them install this. When I mentioned that this was the current snapshot of the import upload workflows, I was kind of thinking of this. As we move into the future, we're thinking about how we can replace Aspera with something more, a little more user-friendly and intuitive, but we're not there yet. So for now, we're using Aspera, but we hopefully, within several years, this much of the slide deck will be obsolete and we'll have moved on. But for now, we use Aspera for large uploads. Certainly, a lot of CyTOF experiments generate files that are too large for regular upload and require Aspera, and some flow cytometry files as well. But certainly, CyTOF files are getting bigger and more voluminous, and so the Aspera helps those uploads without interruption. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what ImmPort does to preserve patient privacy. So as I mentioned, ImmPort has data from NIAID-funded researchers who are part of consortium that we work with, and we set up their workspaces and we set up their accounts. We kind of get them introduced to ImmPort. ImmPort also uploads, works with the CRO, Clinical Research Organization, that date funds for clinical trials, and we work with them directly to import their clinical trial data into ImmPort. And so if you look around ImmPort and you see some clinical trial data, you'll see some uploads that were not submitted by regular data uploaders, but they're done more internally, and we work with the research organization to transform their data and get it up into ImmPort. And the reason I bring this up is because for those large clinical trials, we do some different processes that I'm not going to talk about. So if in terms of de-identifying study files and things like that, that's not really relevant for today. But I did want to talk about, the whole, many aspects of the data upload process within an ImmPort are designed to preserve patient privacy. And so this list here is just really showing some things that we do. These are things that the processes that are built in that the database does when you're uploading data, just is a built-in process. So the first thing is really key, and that's subject identifiers that you use within your upload templates. Those are never shared with the public, and I'm going to show you how that works. And by the same token, biosample and experiment sample IDs are never shared with the public either, because often, when you design your biosample and experiment sample IDs, you're using your subject identifier in there somewhere to clarify your ID, right? So what we do is the database assigns an accession to those records, and it never shares that original ID, so that when you're creating your upload templates, you don't have to remap your subject IDs, and you can know that ImmPort will never share those. We also don't allow dates in our upload. We don't allow dates within the subject demographic records in terms of date of birth, and we don't allow dates for biosample annotation. All biosample records, they need to be annotated with your study time collected. So study time can be usually it's days, but it can be hours, minutes, weeks. And then you can specify what time zero is for your study. Very often it's, day of recruitment or day of enrollment. But you can say, day of first infection, day of first vaccination, what have you. And all of the data has to be converted to study time before uploaded. Okay. We don't allow subject locations that are more granular than the state. And that's, again, government required policy. And we do things like like ages that are larger than 89 get automatically are not displayed, and that's that's government mandated. That's to preserve privacy. You can also, when you create your subject records, you can bin ages, so you can say, I can tell you, my subjects are between the ages of 30 and 40, but I can't give you, I'm not allowed to give you more granular information about their age. Or sometimes it's the case where you're getting data from a blood bank and you don't know the age, and you may say, okay, my subjects are between the age of 18 and 89 because they're from a blood bank and I don't know how old they are. So there's different tools that ImmPort uses to help you preserve the privacy of your subjects. So here's what the user-defined ID kind of workflow kind of looks like, where you can see here you have your upload templates and you're putting in your ID there. Here I can show you these because this is an ID that was already made public through Geo. So the identifier I'm showing you in this demo is already shared with the public. So you would add that subject ID and that experiment sample ID into the templates, and then you would upload it. And then you would see in your private workspace, you see that user-defined ID. The reason that you can see this private workspace is because you've been granted access. And so that's why you can see this private data, and you can see the subject accession that the database has assigned, as well as that user-defined ID. And then what happens is when we share that data, we only share that subject accession, and we never share that user-defined ID with the shared data. Okay, so that's a workflow process. That's the database process that's mandatory within ImmPort that we use to preserve subject privacy. Here you can see a couple of examples of templates where we collect demographics and where we collect biosample annotation information. And so we're asking for, we don't collect any dates for any date of birth or date of death or date of sample collection. Okay. There was a question in the chat about data that's in Geo or data that's in SRA. We link to that data whenever possible. We have, so we will create, what we'll do in that case, if you have a study and then you have subjects, and then we will create a biosample record and an experiment sample record. And part of that experiment sample record will be the Geo or SRA accession number, and then we can just link to it, and you don't need to duplicate work. We link to repositories whenever possible. We are sometimes, in some cases, we're able to, if someone has data that's already in Geo and it's public, we're able to use the NCBI APIs to go get that data, like pull back the metadata from Geo and take a look at it. And sometimes we're able to parse it and generate our ImmPort upload templates just using the data directly from the API. Some Geo records are very thorough in terms of talking about the biosample type and the study time collected and all that important information. And so if that's in Geo and well organized, we can just pull it over Oftentimes we try to do that for some of our data submitters when we can. Okay. Upload into ImmPort. Use it. What we do, ImmPort uses establish ontologies whenever possible to define the terms that we use for data annotation. So what we try to do, preferred method is to within the upload templates, we will provide where data, analyte. Here you see we condition reported for a study and analyte reported for a reagent. So we will have a lookup table, a reference table, and that will populate a drop down. And then you can look at the drop down and see if your analyte or your condition is available. You can select it. Also, if you just type it in, what we do is then we have tables, database tables that that will map the preferred value to the reported value, so that at upload we can populate. We can leave the reported column as it is for all of our records, and then we can populate the preferred column at upload. So that when that data gets shared, you have both the reported and the preferred, and that helps to harmonize data across, within studies and across studies, to help our data downloaders. And so, here's an example, from our most recent data release of the study that we shared, and because of our data upload processes, where we require at the top you can see we require FCS, or this is for either CyTOF or flow cytometry, and we require the FCS files. We require those to be linked to experiment sample records, and those in turn get the experiment sample records are linked to biosample records. And the reason that we enforce all of these data standard rules and this enforcement of the ImmPort data model is so that when in between the data upload and data sharing, we can try to harmonize the data. And in the top here, you can see what we can do with flow cytometry headers is try to put them into a standard format. So you can see here at the top two panels, you can see that we look into the FCS files and we pull out the headers and we see what did they give us, and then what we can do is put them into a standard format. And you can see these are the files that are actually available right now on ImmPort. These are shared data, and you can see we can harmonize that data so that when we share it, hopefully this makes the data more usable and more friendly. And you can see, and then at the bottom we can do the same with reagent records, where you're creating a reagent record and you have a reported analyte. And then what we can do is we can take that reported analyte and compare it to our reference table and populate the preferred analyte. And then what we can do, we have a whole analyte reference table where we have links. We can talk about all of the analytes across ImmPort and say, here's the analyte, and then here's the synonyms, and then here's the definition that we use within ImmPort to define, this gene or this protein, right? So what we would encourage folks to do who are thinking about submitting data to ImmPort, we would encourage you to go look at the shared data within ImmPort. We have cohort discovery tool, a search engine. You can go and look and see, okay, what are data that's available in ImmPort that use similar data types to mine, or that where the studies were organized similar to my study. You can look at the data that's available and see how other people organized their data, annotated it, uploaded it, and we're available to help if you want help looking at the shared data, we're available. We have tutorials that will help familiarize yourself with the ImmPort data model. We like to help the data downloaders understand the data model. So if you're interested in ImmPort shared data, don't be afraid to reach out to the help desk if you have questions, because we love to help people who are looking at the data and trying to see within the shared data, what they can find. And with that, I'd like to thank the entire team, and we're happy to take questions.
Thanks, Henry. It was a great presentation, and we have some great questions. So I'll start in the order. First one is just a reminder that the FASTQ files can be uploaded to SRA and dbGaP. And I also want to remind people that we ImmPort has one of the largest repository for the flow cytometry data, the process as well as raw FCS files. And we have a lot of legacy data available for data reuse. Now I move on to the next question. I'll just read out. And this question is for Henry. Can the templates be pre-filled with example data and non-essential entries in the templates be clearly indicated? And if the samples are from animals, the subject entries may mostly not apply and not always be clear. So what information is needed and what is not?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, certainly our templates are designed with an eye towards clinical trials. We also try to get as much data as we can at upload, because we know that that produces the best data, within the database and for sharing. So certainly for animals, there, we can do, we're happy to show you, if, we're happy to meet with you and show you, okay, examples of placeholders people use, because certainly there are requirements, and certainly for animals. And as we move forward, we're thinking about, how we're going to going forward, if we're going to change the way, the requirements that we have for animal studies. But right now, we have the upload process we have, but we're happy to work with you and show you, okay, here's examples of how other people have gotten this animal data in, without providing, information such as inclusion exclusion criteria that, while it's required by the database, you don't really have that data. So we're happy to show you how to get those studies loaded. Yeah.
So let's move on to the next question. Is there a grant or a contract needed to share data?
So we require a record to a funding source. So frequently that record, will be a grant or a contract, ID, but sometimes, we have studies from overseas where they don't have, like a serial number. They're funded through a source. And so we can create a record for their funding, even if it's not, within NIH Reporter. So we can create a record for the funding and then link it. So it is required by the database, but we have different ways of kind of making the database happy depending on what your funding is and who you want to kind of acknowledge.
And just to add on to this, you're using the cohort discovery tool. That's the search portal we have. You can share search based on the grant, or if you know the RFN number or the program name, you can identify the studies by program name. This is more on the search side if you are looking for particular data sets from a consortium or any projects of your choice that you are interested for the data sets. That's also available as a search tool. All right, so there's the next question is, do you anticipate adding additional templates, or will this be the extension of them?
So we plan to continue to improve the upload process. So, you know, we look at the data that our submitters are generating. And so we see, you know, in terms of like protein array technology, where things are moving very quickly. So like for now we have data standards and requirements for multiplex bead array assays. And now it's seeing, you know, we're kind of keeping an eye out for, okay, what's the new data that's going to be coming in? What are the kind of, you know, do we need to be collecting standards and you know, controls and standard curves the way we do with MBA? Or do we need, you know, what is the data that we need to collect in order for people to understand this data and in order for people to reanalyze this data? So as we're going forward, we're figuring out, okay, do we need to add additional templates? Is there a way that we can simplify the existing templates so that it can accommodate different types of data? That's something we definitely are working on. And you know, if you have data types and you want to know, how can I model this? How can I load this? This doesn't have a specific upload template. We can definitely talk to you about how you might upload it, how existing data similar to that has been uploaded into ImmPort, and that sort of thing.
All right, so the next question is gene expression and metabolomics data linked out of GEO or housed in ImmPort?
We much prefer to link directly to GEO or SRA or dbGaP. We have a list, we have a reference table of public repositories that we link to. And so now I think there's a couple of metabolomics repositories that we link to as well, or at least we have them in our lookup table. I don't know how many uploads have actually used them, but we try to link to data that's already available in another public repository whenever possible. Yes.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'll go to the next one. So yeah, I can take this question. Do you accept VDJ repertoire data? Not yet. We directly are not taking the repertoire data from VDJ, but we have some process data for repertoire data that's curated in ImmPort, and then SRA has the sequencing, the raw data available. So let's go to the next one, and probably that will be the last one. We have 2 minutes left. Is there a simpler way to find out whether there is an error in my upload? Right now we have got an email with a link that opens another window and then a table with a list of errors that I don't really understand. Would it be possible to have an error marking process that does not allow you to proceed, such as when filling a form online?
So currently with the study registration wizard, that's been implemented in the wizard for the generation of a study. So now we're trying to figure out how we can, you know, how we can take advantage of that sort of process for data, other data types, not just generation of the study, to help users upload data in a more intuitive way. And so we're taking feedback on the wizard and figuring out, okay, what are our next steps, and how are we, you know, in general gonna try to simplify ImmPort data upload, and that includes things like understanding error messages. So we are thinking about how to improve and simplify upload, and that's going to be an ongoing process. But we don't have any scheduled releases of new approaches yet.
All right, I think thanks, Henry, for answering these questions. And I think we are at the top of the hour. So the questions which didn't get answered, we will try to reply back via email. So once again, thanks everyone for your participation, and we're gonna go for another round of the webinar with more information on the data management sharing plan late January. So we're gonna host or look for, or we'll keep you posted about the next webinar. Again, once again, thanks everyone for joining, and we love your participation and that for our future webinar. And if you have any feedback, please send us an email at ImmPort Help Desk. The information is out on the acknowledgement side on the bottom. So we always looking for feedback from our users. With that, thank you very much.